Hey folks, about a month ago, I released a brief response to a conservative podcast that attempted to debunk one of my videos, mostly detailing a couple of humorous examples of them failing to understand quite simple points, and overall making themselves look very silly. The reason I bring that up now is because of how their discussion ended, by barely sentient dog feces like Jeremy Hambley of the...
All right, this is getting tiresome. I just don't like the ad hominems. It's like, okay, we got him in a lie, we got him in an untruth, or we got him in a lack of information. Fantastic, run with it. Nope, we're going to stop and we're going to change topics. Like, why?
Ignoring a lot of context that actually makes this clip quite embarrassing, there's a semblance of a fair point in here. Ad hominems don't challenge your opponent's points, so what gives, right? Especially when a majority of my content criticizing anti-woke people is fairly level-headed, I think. But put succinctly, while many of the people this channel criticizes can be fairly described as assholes, liars, dumbasses, etc., Jeremy Quartering is on an entirely different level of scum. And since I've previously taken the time to debunk his points and prove he doesn't know what he's talking about, I think it would be disingenuous of me to ever mention him without first acknowledging that. This video will attempt to give you some clear, specific, and recent examples of how this person is just genuinely human garbage, and hopefully explain why I discuss him in the manner I do. And yes, I do sincerely think that he deserves to financially suffer for some of the lies that he has been peddling. There is, of course, the very image I showed in my original video, wherein Jeremy claims that the Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be bad because he isn't sexually attracted to some of the people working on the game, people who incidentally have worked at Bethesda for decades, somehow managing to not ruin all of the previous incredibly successful games that they've worked on. Rhetoric like this is unfortunately not uncommon, but it's also comfortably disqualifying from the range of acceptable discourse. If you saw this tweet and you agreed with it, you do not live in reality. Your heart is hardened with hate. Your opinions are worthless, and they will remain so until you find your way back to the real world. But as we've already covered that, let's take a look at some of the more recent online behavior of Jeremy's. He has, in the past few weeks, for example, posted a video with a clickbait thumbnail no different from one of his Hollywood drama videos, where he exploits a real-life murder for financial gain while refusing to learn who the victims were or how to even pronounce their names, which really kind of makes everything else I'm going to talk about here feel a little bit trivial. Like this is genuinely just like lowest of the low behavior. But unfortunately, I only actually noticed this after I went through everything else. So here that is. Video could be over there. For a slightly cleaner example, there's his video, Women Finally Get It and It's Too Late, which may already set off a few alarms. But let's watch this little edit he placed at the beginning.
If you're a girly who's living right now in your own little apartment, can afford your own bills, can pay your own rent, you don't rely on your family, you don't rely on a man in your life to financially provide for you, you're quite literally breaking generational trauma. I can literally say it started with me.
Much later.
They call her the cat lady. People say she's crazy just because she has a few dozen cats. But can anyone who loves animals that much really be crazy?
I was the first. I was literally the first woman in my entire female lineage to live alone.
Leave a like on this video if you think women deserve less.
One thing you may have noticed is that he needed to use a cartoon to make his point. This was a subtle reference to the fact that his beliefs are fictional. More importantly, at the end of that segment, he repeated a line from the thumbnail: women deserve less. Now, the obvious retort you might make here is something to the effect of, wow, now we're getting offended over humor? He was just making a joke, libcuck. To which I would reply, counterpoint, no, he wasn't. As we're going to cover a little bit further in a moment, this entire video is about how women deserve this suffering they've supposedly brought on themselves. He will go on to argue that women's expectations are too high and they need to settle for less, like men supposedly do. Point being, women deserve less is his explicit position, asserted in a manner that almost affords a hint of plausible deniability, but that's just what he believes.
Now, this isn't all women, obviously. This is kind of the Instagram, my man needs to make $100,000 a year. He needs to be cool with my triple-digit body count, all this kind of stuff. Men are raised in how to treat a woman. Women are raised in what to expect from a man. Think about that, right? That is a very different mindset nowadays. When I grew up, it was, hey, open the doors, you know, be on top every once in a while. Don't be so lazy. You know, this kind of stuff. It was a little more detailed than that, but women are growing up. You need a man who's got a college degree. You need a man who's got a 6-figure salary. You need a man who's going to be a handyman. You need a man who's going to be sensitive and cry at movies. You need a man who says this, and this. And now all the women that bought into that have found unending loneliness, and they've resided. They've become resolved. They've accepted their fate of loneliness.
I'd consider that perhaps the least terrible clip from this video, granting that the vast majority of it is just Jeremy reading someone else's words badly and barely adding anything. But I'd consider it the least terrible because Jeremy brushes up against just like a hint of self-awareness, acknowledging that in the broad strokes, men are often taught, but poorly, I might add, how to treat women, while women are taught what to expect from men. This is, of course, extremely reductive to the point of being completely untrue. Women are taught restrictive social norms just as much as men are, and men are taught what to expect of women, which to many conservatives includes having sex with their husbands, regardless of whether she wants to or not. Also, gay people exist. Either way, if I squint a little, I can kind of see the point he's making. In some subcultures and certain types of media, by which I mostly mean BuzzFeed and maybe Tumblr, a disproportionate emphasis can be placed on how men should treat women and what women should expect from men. Think about why that might be for a moment.
Think about that.
Could it perhaps be that disproportionate rates of violence and abuse coming from men is a problem that these subcultures are trying to rectify? See, you can't just make observations about the world without asking yourself why they're the case. There's a very good reason for this phenomenon that Jeremy has half identified, but even at his best, Jeremy is not interested in examining the world or challenging the beliefs he pretends to have. But here's a bit that's perhaps even a little bit more revealing.
Some men get into trouble where they say, well, I make all the money. Like when I had my wife retire, I only made the mistake a few times, but I learned pretty quick never to throw money in her face. I learned pretty quick to say it was my money, because that would always lead to a terrible, terrible fight. Rightfully so, because I was still adjusting to what my mind had already told me I wanted. I wanted my wife at home to keep the house clean, to have kids, to, cook dinner, to take care of the pets, so I could make more money. That's what I wanted. Now, if I had paired myself with a woman that wanted the same thing, there would be no possible way that would have worked out. This is why gender roles exist.
See what I mean when I say it's not a joke? Jeremy openly states that he had his wife retire so that he could make more money and fulfill his dreams, after which point he would apparently throw the fact that his wife no longer made money in her face. Jeremy's explicitly stated position is that gender roles exist to give men what they want and fulfill their dreams, which is unfortunately something those evil third-wave feminists cannot abide.
You can call me superficial all you want. That's fine. But my wife knows that the expectation is that she doesn't lay around and not put makeup on, and that she gets dressed every day and looks nice. She knows that. It's not it sounds kind of creepy saying it out loud, but that's my expectation. I want my wife to look pretty, okay?
Yeah, man, we knew that you acted that way without you having to tell us. Women need to put a great deal of effort into looking good for their husbands, who they will have to accept putting zero effort into his appearance while he podcasts all day. It makes sense if you believe that women deserve less. And to round it out, this is how Jeremy ends his video. And very little of this part has anything to do with my overall point that this guy's kind of evil, but I do feel it's important to also acknowledge that he is kind of stupid.
Some of the numbers that are shocking. A 2022 Pew survey of single adults showed only 34% of single women were even looking for romance, compared to 54% of single men. Down from 38 and 61, so even more people are checking out of the dating market. The share of women, listen to this, the share of women aged 18 to 40 who are single, that is neither married nor living with a boyfriend, was 51.4% in 2023. 51%. Call it 52. The same data in just 20 years before was at 41.8%. That's 10 basis points, or almost a 15% increase in people who just are single and resided to dying alone.
Let's run down the list. 1, the number of people who are currently unmarried and not cohabitating with a partner is not the same as the number of people resigned to dying alone. I know those sound like the same thing, but they're actually not. 2, not everyone counted as single, according to this article, is actually single, as some, and even many, people are in relationships that don't include cohabitation, something Jeremy should have caught if he actually read English. 3, the proper rounding of 51.4 would be 51, not 52. 4, 1 basis point is 100th of 1%, so 10 basis points would be 0.1%, which does not in any way apply to a jump from 42 to 51%. 5, yes, we're still going. In no way would this be a 15% increase, depending on what you're referring to. You could plausibly call this a 9 to 10% increase in reference to the whole population, about 42% to 51%, as I said. It's a bit statistically misleading, but I could see why you'd say it that way. Or you could more accurately call this about a 23% increase, as 51.4 is 23% greater than 41.8. Neither of those are anywhere close to 15. And 6, it says partners, not boyfriends. Gay people still exist, Jeremy. Anyhow, I said in the title of this video that Jeremy deserves to be sued, and unlike his channel, I like to actually deliver on the promises of my titles and thumbnails. Refer to my previous video on the quartering if you don't know what I mean. So let's take a look at a video called Pedro Pascal blasted for molesting women on the Fantastic Four press tour, which opens with a completely unrelated lie.
If you're like me, you have Pedro Pascal fatigue. My fatigue started when he forced the writers of The Mandalorian to allow him to take his mask off because he wanted the whole world to know that it was Pedro Pascal playing The Mandalorian, even though the lore of The Mandalorian is to never take your mask off.
This claim is placed at the beginning of the video for an obvious reason. It is intended to establish Pascal as a bad person we're supposed to hate. The only problem here is that this story is likely completely fabricated, the primary source being Grace Randolph and seemingly no one else. If you know who Grace Randolph is, you're probably groaning right now, and if you don't, the best way I can describe the veracity of one of her stories is as only marginally more credible than a stranger shouting a big scoop at you from across the street. What I'm saying is that Jeremy is either knowingly lying here, or he didn't do a lick of research to check if this was true before he repeated it online. Regardless of its truth value, though, this isn't anything approaching lawsuit material. So let's get on to that, glossing over the part where he gets randomly homophobic and essentially admits that all of the pretend we're not bigots, we just want good writing bullshit is a complete lie. They're just bigots.
Then he got the role in HBO's The Last of Us, which I was willing to watch. But of course, by the 3rd episode, HBO did what HBO does and put a dude in it and made him lame and gay. And then now he's in Fantastic Four and some other movie. But what I didn't notice is apparently he has this really creepy habit of basically, it looks to me like he's molesting these women that he is working with. And he says it's because he has anxiety. Well, some new footage has come up, and it does not exactly seem like everyone's okay with this. And we're going to get into that after a super quick word from this video's sponsor.
Nothing to add yet, except that it is worth further noting that the entire purpose of this video accusing someone of a serious crime is to make as much money as possible.
In a moment dubbed creepy by fans, a grinning Pascal smiled at Defoe before affectionately grabbing his wife's face and stroking her chin. Defoe quickly pointed at Pascal before his smile dropped in a wild clip, with one viewer commenting, "Touch my wife like that and we're throwing hands. WTF is going on with this creep?" Others leapt to his defense saying, "He has anxiety."
I don't know why I didn't catch this when I was going through this video the first time, but he just lied there, like explicitly. That is not what it says on screen at all. Don't worry, we are going to address it.
Here's that clip. A video of Pedro Pascal touching William Dafoe's wife is resurfacing. William Dafoe is having none of that. So he's touching William Dafoe there. Yeah, oh yeah, he did. He was not having any of that. Look at the face. It's poor video, But if you look at his face, he has a huge smile. Then he sees what he's doing, touching William Dafoe's wife, and watch his face. Boom. Stop touching her, he said. Smile went immediately away, and his wife immediately stopped smiling.
So this is the claim. Pedro Pascal allegedly tried to inappropriately touch a woman on camera in front of her husband. And by allegedly, I mean a bunch of weirdos on the internet decided that was what happened for no reason. Now, not being a fucking moron, I wanted to get a little bit of context for this clip, but upon searching for it, my feed was full of a bunch of fucking morons posting the same 18 seconds with nothing showing what happened before or after. Many of these accounts were, of course, AI-generated YouTube channels spreading this shit because we haven't got enough of that these days, but after figuring out where this clip was taken, I searched Willem Dafoe's Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony, an event for which Pascal was an invited speaker. And before I show you any other clips of that event, let's let the clip Jeremy played play out a little bit further.
Thank you guys. Over the shoulder now. Here we go. Pick them up. Thank you, everybody. Let's see those pants, Pedro. Pedro, let's see those pants. Can I? Shoe shot. What? Oh, the shoe shot.
You want to know why none of these jackasses ever play the whole clip? Because it makes them look like fucking morons, with no allegations against Pascal by anyone who knows him, as far as I can tell. All they can do is allege non-consensual contact by cutting out the part where the woman voluntarily throws her arms around him, almost like they're friends of some sort. And this is how it goes every fucking time they pull this shit. They don't give a shit about women, we've established that, or consent, or appropriate workplace behavior. Ask any of them what they think about #MeToo. They just want to destroy someone because he disagrees with them politically. If you publicly support queer people or oppose fascism to the extent that Pedro Pascal does, people like Jeremy will flat out falsify stories about you in an attempt to ruin your life. Starting to see why I, at least morally, consider this to be lawsuit material. I don't know enough about libel law or the precise standards for slandering a celebrity. It's more complicated than slandering a private citizen. I was never taught what laws there are. But this kind of shit absolutely deserves it. Like, this should not be allowed on this platform, and you should not be allowed to monetize this kind of content. Jeremy just falsely accused a man of molesting someone to make money. But hey, here's the thing. I am leaving something out. Having, done the research to check the clip, I hold all of the cards right now. Pedro Pascal didn't just consensually touch Giada Colagrande. She has a name, by the way, and I'm sure I just butchered it. He also kissed her husband.
I love you. I love you.
And in front of his wife. Let me tell you, if someone touched my husband like that, they'd be catching these hands. Admittedly, I would love to see what kind of narrative these fuckheads could concoct out of both of those clips back to back. But don't worry, Jeremy is also about to explain how a woman touching Pascal's neck is another example of his predatory behavior somehow.
Then this video came out. Even if Pedro Pascal is gay, which I don't know if he is or isn't, nor do I care, if my wife were doing this to another man, I'd leave her to the streets where I found her. He convinces these women that he needs to have, look at this.
These are gorgeous. I think that's my favorite image so far.
Just our hands.
Yeah. As long as you don't
By the way, her eyebrows, big yikes. Her eyebrows are gross. So nobody's helping this woman. If you dye your hair, first of all, she's got highlights in her hair, she should probably lighten those weird eyebrows. And why does they make her look like Snuffleupagus?
Sorry, after he takes a quick misogyny break. He actually doesn't elaborate on this. I don't know why I pretended like he would. For no particular reason, I'm going to read you a quote from Vanessa Kirby. What happened is, we were both incredibly nervous about going out in front of thousands of people who love this comic. He wanted me to know that we were in this together, and I found it a lovely gesture and was very glad to squeeze his hand back. I don't know, for some reason, that felt relevant.
Me wondering why Pedro Pascal never has, quote, anxiety around his male co-stars. Oh, shout out Dokes. I don't really see him doing this with men, so that's why I'm kind of like, I don't know about all that. And I don't think other men want him touching people's wife, or, want them touching their wives. Pedro Pascal's anxiety touching with Vanessa Kirby sparks a meme storm. Fans ask, why doesn't he touch me like that? I mean, I don't know. It's very weird.
So the reason you've never seen him be physically affectionate with his male coworkers is because all you've fucking seen are 10-second clips pulled out of context. You know, as evidenced by the fact that I found an example of him doing exactly that in the first video I checked. And I guess that was it, right? Jeremy just publicly falsely accused someone of being a molester because it makes him money. That's why I talk about him like he's scum of the earth. Because he is. He wakes up every day searching for new ways to enrich himself by making the world a worse place. And people like that deserve nothing but contempt. Oh, and just in the unfortunate event that Pascal is ever credibly accused of something, nothing I've said in this video will suddenly be wrong. That's not how information works. Anyhow, thank you for watching. Consider liking me and subscribing to me. Number go up and make me happy. You can check out our new Discord in the description. Join my Patreon or become a channel member. Honestly, the sky's the limit. Either way, fuck you, Jeremy.